But I'm going to start and just give you kind of an overview of our trip, and then I have a slideshow, and then I'm going to have Chris and Tina come and share, and then I'll wrap it up just a little bit. So this year we took off on a Wednesday night and got into Lilongwe on Friday. So there is a 10-hour time difference, so it's not a full 48 hours to get there, but it still seems like it. And and I need to apologize for Joel not being here. He would have loved to have been here, but there was an elk out there somewhere calling his name. So anyway, so and we hope that elk is soon in our freezer. So we go to Malawi, Africa, because God put on our hearts years ago to work with the children and the Department of Education and the schools in Malawi. So we came up with an idea in 2009, and we invented this little desk. And you'll see in some of the pictures that the kids are sitting on the floor, dirt floor. Sometimes it's a dung floor. And sometimes they're sitting on a brick outside under a tree because there aren't enough classrooms. Their thigh is their desk. And they virtually have hardly any materials whatsoever. Visuals in their classroom are basically unheard of. And the teachers themselves have very few materials to teach from. So we came up with an idea for this desk, and you can see it's two-sided, so the kids can still sit on the floor, and 3 or 4 of them can scrunch up to the desk, and they can write on it, but it's also a visual, so it, you can see there's the alphabet, the number, the rulers, mathematical times table, the solar system, the world, ooh, that was loud, nutrition chart, and all sorts of things on here. And everything that's on here is also in a manual that we give to every teacher. And the manual has about 100 pages worth of learning materials. We don't do lessons plans for them. We give them the manual with the facts and their teachers, so they provide their own lessons and they figure out what's appropriate for 1st grade, what's appropriate for 5th, and so on. So school in Malawi is not mandatory, and it is only free up through the 8th grade. If you want to go on beyond that, you have to take a national exam and pass. And if you don't pass, you're pretty much done. If you do pass, you have to start paying for school. And there are very few secondary schools. So if you want to go, it probably means you have to go away to go to school and now be in a hostel. And it's very expensive, and not many children get to go on to secondary school. So we felt like, okay, if all you're going to get is 1st through 8th grade, let's make an impact and see as much as we can pour into the children and give to them so that they can have an education, so that when they're dealing in their village life with even selling their vegetables and stuff that they grow, that they're not being cheated. They know how to do math. When it comes time for elections, they can actually read what's in a pamphlet or what people are saying, and they can make decisions for themselves instead of being told, this is who you need to vote for. And we wanted to put a stop to a lot of the corruption that is prevalent in Africa. And so there are a lot of power words on here that just say things like reliable and blessed and trustworthy. And then if you go in the manual to that section, there's definitions of all of these words. There's scriptures that back them up. There's synonyms, so that this word is like this word and stuff. So we want to just pour into their lives and make a difference. And we're in this for the long haul. We know that we're not going to see a difference in a year. You know, children are going to start in Standard 1, and they're going to go hopefully up through 8th grade, and their children are going to get education, and we're going to see the change and the difference down the road. And so it's something that's on our heart to continue to do. We've managed to get the cost of these, so this is phenomenal. Printed in China. I was kind of a slow one on this one. I really wanted made in America. But I had to come to the reality that to be a steward of the money that you all support us with, we needed to really look at things. So versus $35 for one made in America, and we're the mule team that transports them ourselves as our luggage to Africa, I can have them done in China for $13. That includes shipping them all the way to Malawi on their own and pays for the clearing costs of customs to get them all through and everything. So it's a huge difference, and it's just tripled what we can do. So we're excited about that. That's kind of a new direction for us. And this year we also had the manuals printed in Malawi, so we didn't have to take those over there, and they could do them for just a phenomenal price. I think it was about $2.60 a piece for these 100-page manuals, so that was pretty awesome. So this year we started on Monday with a teacher conference, teacher training conference. And we had invited all of the schools in one zone. So Malawi is kind of set up like Spokane. There's districts. So like we have Meade, District 81, the Valley. So they have districts. Each district has 8 to 10 zones in it, and each zone can have anywhere from 8 to 14, 16 schools in a zone. And we're working to get through the Chimutu district. So we trained in that district last year, and this year we did an entire zone called the Chimuku zone, and there were 14 schools. Those 14 schools had 675 teachers and over 44,000 children. So if you do the math, that comes out to about 70 students per teacher. But like I said, not everybody keeps going on. A lot of kids, they start hitting the 4th grade, 5th grade, high dropout rate. So if you're a 1st grade teacher, you probably have close to 200 children in your classroom. If you're a 7th and 8th grade teacher, you probably have 35, maybe 40 in your classroom. So it's a huge, it's just overwhelming, really overwhelming, the odds that these teachers are faced with. But when we come in and do a training, we just give them some tremendous tools, and not just the PAL and the manuals, but we actually pour into them as teachers and encourage them and give them skills. And Chris is phenomenal, but you all know that. You know, she just comes in and just, she lifts them up from one level to, 3 or 4 levels higher. And it's so exciting to sit back and watch and see what's happening and hear these teachers say, I'm so encouraged. You've just spoken so much into our lives, and you've helped us so much. So, but I'm going to let her share, her story. But anyway, we had a teacher training on Monday. We did 7 of the schools. We had 49 teachers and headmasters representing their schools come. And then on Tuesday, we went and visited some of those schools. On Wednesday, we took a trip to the lake. That might not sound like much, but Lake Malawi is one of the 10 largest lakes in the world as far as size and as far as depth. It's massive. It's like going to the ocean. It's huge. So that's kind of fun to go and do. Then Thursday, we did another teacher training. And Friday, we visited more schools. And then Saturday, we went out and visited villages and went to a village church on Sunday. That was a lot of fun. And then on Monday, we took the team and we went to Zambia. And we went to a game park over in Zambia and just spent some time as a team just unwinding. We take a day to do debriefing where we process, what have you experienced? This year, our questions to the team was based around culture. What have you seen in the culture that you like? What have you seen that you don't like and that you know that needs to be changed? Who impacted you on a personal level? And just then we have everybody write a letter to God and just tell them about their experience. And then we ask them to have, prophesy back to themselves and have God write a letter back to them. So we just take that time to just process what's happening. If we don't, you get back and you just jump right into your lives and you never really take the time to sit and say, okay, God, what are you speaking to me and what's been happening in my life these last crazy 10 days? And then we do a couple safaris, and that's always really fun. And just to see the wonder and the awe of God. And so we call the first part of our trip getting the team into Africa, and the second part we call getting Africa into the team. And so if you're interested, talk to me, talk to Joel in the next few weeks. We'd love to have you join us again when we go next year. And I think that we will do the slideshow. And then we will have some more sharing. Oops. Isn't that fun? So we had a team of 8 this year, and 4 were from the church here, and the other 4 were from 4 other churches, so that was exciting. And I'm going to ask Tina to come and share her experience. And I just want to say this girl is amazing. And she has such a servant's heart. And, you know, there were so many times we didn't even have to say anything. She would see a need, and she would just jump in and get her done. And that was awesome. Thank you, Tina. You were tremendous.
Yes. Yeah, it was my first time in Africa, first time leaving the country. So God really worked a lot on my heart with fears and anxieties and just leaving my apartment alone for 2.5 weeks and going to a foreign country and riding on long plane rides. Building up to Africa, I thought I was going to lose my job, but then I got to keep it. So a lot of anxieties and fears before Africa. But the trip was just amazing. It was life-changing. People there are just so friendly and so nice and big smiles. And like we would share our names at the beginning of the church services. And by the end, random people who I didn't even talk to would be like, Tina, Tina. And I'm like, you remembered my name. But yeah, it was just a beautiful, amazing trip. I got to share my testimony with the whole group, which was really awesome. And then the next day, Pastor John from Canaan, he's not up there. I don't know, I did that. Asked me a question, and I don't even remember what the question was, but I started to tell him part of my life story. And he was really intrigued by it. And he was like, wow, you really carry something that my people of Africa need to hear. And he really wanted me to share that next Sunday. And there wasn't the right time. So he's like, Tina, I'm very disappointed in you. You have to come back and you have to share your testimony because you carry something and you have this story that my people need to hear. Because my story is about freedom and breakthrough and letting go and forgiveness. And he's like, there's so many people here in Africa that need to hear that. So it was just, God really was like, wow, you do have a story that is very similar to people all around the world. And you need to be open to share it. And then in Zambia, me and Anne came face-to-face with an elephant about 6 inches away from it. I was trying really hard not to move or say anything, but then the elephant lifted his trunk and hit me in the arm. And of course, I jumped and screamed and did this. And Anne's like, Tina, I said don't move. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And then we hid behind this little bamboo fence until the elephant backed away. And then later, someone told us it was blind and that we should have moved right away. I was like, now you tell me. But yeah, it was just super great, and the conferences all went super awesome. All the teachers just were so open to us and wanted to take our picture, and it was just an amazing trip, and I'm so glad I got to do it because many years ago, I've been wanting to go to Africa since high school, and I've had many prophetic words spoken over my life about you're going to Africa someday. So just to see that all to come to happen, yeah. So it was just such an amazing trip, and I will go back again someday because Pastor John keeps messaging me about it. He's messaged me like 3 days in a row now. Okay.
So I mentioned that Chris is sort of our Wonder Woman. She just is amazing, and so just listen to what's on her heart and what she has to share, and you know, we couldn't do what we do without Chris.
I don't know if I should stay down here because I'm short. People, okay, I need to go up. Okay, I need to go up, they said. Who's on? Noelle? I'm nice, right? We've heard from the camera team that John moves too much, and it really makes it hard on there. And I always stand perfectly like in one spot. So what if I like mess with you guys today and like go over here? Africa is amazing. This year was a very different experience going because of the circumstances of us finding a house and packing up a house and moving, and then moving in and then leaving in less than 2 weeks for Africa. I kind of found myself like, oh, I shouldn't even be going this year because it's too crazy. But then you just get there, and it's so incredible. The people are so warm. The the one thing that's really changed in the 5 years' time is that the first years we went, there would be kind of a traffic Malawi-style long way traffic jam in the morning if you were out on the road, like at 8 o'clock. It took a while to get through town. But now more people have cars, or actually more people there's more taxis available, which are vans. And so the driving is frightening now. I mean, Annie from 5 years ago, it's a whole nother scene where there are times when you just have to close your eyes because you come to an intersection and there's no lights and there's no policemen standing out and there's no American orderly system of stop and goes. And so cars are literally a sun ray in an intersection of people trying to get around other people and people coming across and only being halfway across before someone else comes the other way. And they need more roads and more infrastructure, but they don't think long term there. They're so used to a culture of just doing the way things have been for years and years, and hence the same issues in their educational system. We'll just live and do it the same way that we've always done it. And that's what I found myself praying for, was just, more ingenuity or acceptance of new ideas, or just the ability to be able to dream. That's not there. In so many third world countries, there just is such a, in some ways it's great because there's such a contentment to just do life the same, but there's nothing pushing for things to be better, things that would make their lives be better, and not materialistically better, but better in health, better in nutrition, better in resources for their nation. And so that's the one thing is, if you've ever read the book or seen the Netflix thing, and if you haven't, it would be great for you to watch it. The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind is written by a young man that was a student in Malawi, but he let God-inspired ideas for ways to have electricity in his nation, and he built a windmill that furnished power for his irrigation system for his family. And so it's very inspiring, but there needs to be like more of that in the nation, because it actually is a very resourceful and could be a very prosperous nation if they just had the ingenuity, and then that brought the resource to be able to do things. So that's what would I want to see. That was in my notes on my trip. Before we had the Monday Teachers Conference, we actually had 2 days where one day we went into a set of into the villages, and we were able to, we packaged up little seed packets, and we had squash and pumpkin, tomatoes, onions, cabbage, and we were able to give those out so that people could have a little personal garden of their own. And so just, what a lot of us probably would have picked up at the fair and maybe tossed in the garbage can thinking, I'm never going to use this. They were just so hungry for, a few seeds to be able to have a sustenance for their family. And so that was really amazing. We were on the 2 Sundays able to go to 2 different church services, which are always amazing. The level of joy and excitement that they have in the church services. They dance. The men all sit on one side, and the women and the children sit on the other side of the church. But then they start singing, and they just dance and strut around, and the kids are dancing, and the mamas have their, babies slung on their backs, and they're dancing. And it's just fun now to be able to, these 2 churches that we were in, they were not standoffish of us at all. And so when we started singing at the first service that we went to, I loved it. Zara's aunt, Carrie Sue, Mike's sister, somebody went and grabbed her, like the song leader went and grabbed her by the hand, and you could just see the look of panic on her face, and started dancing and strutting around with her in the front of the church. And so I was laughing because her face just looked like, wow, now what have I done? But just to see, then the other people would go and grab other members of our team. Somebody had Tina, and she was dancing all over the place. But it was just so fun to see that they were not afraid of us and not afraid to engage with us and to worship the Lord together. I mean, we can't dance the way they dance, and sometimes I'm embarrassed because we really can't sing the way they sing, because they sing a cappella all the time. You go to the schools, and there'll be some little girl who's 10 years old, and she'll stand up and she'll start singing. And then when she starts singing, then they respond back. And then they've got this whole call and response going, harmonies that you just can't imagine. It's just so beautiful. And so I'm sitting there thinking, and then they ask us to come up and do something. And we really should be able to just bust into song and, dance and everything. And we don't have it. It's really embarrassing. But we're not raised in that, where everywhere is about singing and responding together and being family that way together, that when you're together, you just start singing and harmonizing. And, there's old men that don't have any teeth, and they're carrying the bass, and, it's just really beautiful. And then I'm always embarrassed because then it's our turn, and we just get up there and we talk and we lift up little, props and that, which they love, but still, it's just, I think, to have that be such in the fabric of your culture, to just be able to worship like that. Wherever you go, you're not reliant on, a pitch, a tune thing or a piano or anything, but just to be able to worship the Lord spontaneously, and that's just beautiful to me. I actually I preached both Sundays in the church service, and then we did our thing one day in the village, and it's been kind of a process to be able to minister in the churches for me as a woman, because their culture is still very patriarchal. And like I said, the men sit on one side and the women sit on the other. And so for years, I watched Pastor John, translate for men, and he's like, when he translates for Chris Knowlton or translates for the year that John went, and he's like super exuberant, and he's copying all of their body motions and all of that. And then when he shares for me, he just kind of stands still, and there's not a whole lot there. And so this year I felt finally, after years of translating with him, a breakthrough where he's accepting me now as a woman of God, and that I have a voice that needs to be heard there. And so he actually introduced me this year as Pastor Chris, which, see, the people that have been, Zara's like, whoa, she's been there twice. And so that was a big deal. And then one of the last Sunday that we ministered, I talked about the forevers of God, but then I talked about different things. You know how the Lord, when you're speaking, and all of a sudden he just highlights something in your notes that you camp on and you add a lot to. And so I was talking about the power of God that's in each one of them to release healing, and how they can. I had a sponge, so I did talked about the abundant life, and I had a dry sponge, which they do not have prop thingies when they speak. And so I put the sponge in this water, and then I brought it up and talked about how our lives just need to be overflowing with Jesus, so that wherever we go, that Jesus is just coming off of us. And so then I would take my sponge, and I was holding it, but I'd fling it out like this, and the water would just go out, and it would hit the people, and just that expression that they can be so full of Jesus that it comes out. And then I took that further with praying for healing, because there are so many sick people there. In that service that we were at, there was a little boy who was very sick. He's probably 4 or 5 years old, had a high temperature. His mama was just holding him, and he had malaria. And so at the end, we prayed for him, but then we gave mama some money to take the taxi into town, because if you can get into town, even the edge of town, there's clinics there where they'll give out medication for malaria, and it's free. But here they are, they don't have any transportation, so they're stuck in their village with a sick and dying child when help is just, 2 miles away, 3 miles away. So we were able to do that. But then, so we prayed, and then they had me pray for somebody to be healed. But then what was cool is that rather than me praying for a whole bunch of people for healing, we had that one that had been prayed for bring somebody up, and then that one prayed for somebody, and then the two of them. So then we had all of these different people that had been prayed for releasing healing to other people. And so we had a lot of people praying together for others, and that was super fun. The teachers' conferences were really amazing. The ones that we had come this year were more of the urban schools, like they were not too far away from where we were staying. Other years when we've done our seminars or gone out to the schools, they've been more remote. And when you go out, those schools really, truly do not have anything. And so these schools did have, teachers had made a few little posters and put them up on the walls. And so they did have some things. And with that, then the teachers are not, they're not quite as impoverished. I mean, they still don't make much money at all, but just maybe a higher set of teachers than some of the other ones that we've gone to. And my favorite part of my seminars is always when I'm talking about classroom management and do the Words of Life exercise, where I just pick somebody out in the crowd and I just call out a teacher and start, just the Lord gives me something and I just start prophesying basically to that person, but I'm calling it Words of Life and just speaking encouragement into them. And on Monday I did it, and I spoke to a Muslim lady. I called her out and was just speaking into her, and you could just see the transformation in her countenance as you just speaking those words of life into her. And then I have them all pair up and start speaking in pairs, words of life, to other members of their staffs together. And it's fun. Some of the team actually were taking videos and pictures as that was happening, because their countenance would so change as we were able to just minister words of life. And then I challenged them, hey, if you're able to do this with your staff friends, then you can also be doing it with your students and with your learners. And so just exercise. And I have them talk about, what did you feel? What did you see when you were having all of that happen? And the second day that I did it, I had no clue who I was going to pick. And I was sitting behind this one woman, and it just felt like the Lord said, you pick her. And so I got up and I just looked at her, and the Lord is faithful, and started giving me things. And I just started speaking about what a live wire she was, what a source of energy she was. And at that point, I had no idea if she was a teacher or head teacher in her school, and just talking about how she was so passionate and loved her learners, and how she had a contagious kind of joy that would go to others. And people all around her started laughing and pointing at her. And well, it turns out she was a headmaster in a school, Katopes. No, it was the last one that we went to that day. I can't remember. Anyway, she was in the picture when Joel was ringing the cowbell. She was standing on the edge in her red dress that she actually wore the day that she came to our thing, and then she had it on the next day at her school. But to find out, then she comes up to me and she says, you are just like me. Our stories are the same. And so she starts going on. And so it was just super fun to connect. And when we go to the teachers, there were a lot more because the 8th graders were already in session. We actually had the teachers come and connect with us this time. And they just, it's so easy to form quick relationship. And you feel like, oh, I've known this person for a really long time. And we have something in common. And we do. Because Malawi is a huge Christian nation, actually, and religious instruction is part of their curriculum. And the part that Jackie left out was one of our highlights on Friday morning before we went to, oh, you're going to talk about that. Like, I won't steal her thunder then. She is going to hit it. She just didn't mention it before. So she'll tell you the really super exciting thing that happened on our Friday morning. But it was a wonderful time. It's different, but the same, but different every time I go. And it's amazing. And Joel and Jackie are amazing. And Joel, he's just Joel. When he walks into the schools, he just is like, hello, kids. And they're all like, hello, sir. And, they're all formal with him, and he's Joel the grandpa with all of them. And just their interaction with the people and their heart and their faithfulness to what's going on. I just honor them for that. So I forgot to mention the part. They had the thing on the screen where it says Chris takes her lessons outside. I teach one session that's on classroom management and lesson planning, and then I teach another session on learning styles. And I think I've shared this other years that I've gone, that, we all here know what learning styles are. Even if you're not an educator, you've heard it talked about. Well, when we go there, and I say, how many of you know about learning styles? Nobody raises their hand. And so then I go out and talk about that, but then I have to bring it down to Africa version where they don't have tape recorders or digital things or cameras to take film or anything, that we would use here in America as teaching tools for learning styles. They don't have any of that. And so the first day I did the seminar, and that one's right after lunch, and they've eaten a plate full of sema and rice and then a little bit of meat. So lots of carbs, and they're like crashing. And so I think it was Carrie that suggested, why don't we go do take them outside? And so the next time we did it, I talk about jumping rope. I tried to do it inside the first day, but there wasn't enough room. But I talked about using the jump rope, which we give them to practice their spelling words and to do their math facts, just to engage large motor motion for the kinesthetic learner, and then the auditory repetition for the other learners. And so we went outside, and it was so fun because you saw the lady in the high heels. I mean, it was like taking them outside to do the jump rope. All the ladies became little girls again. I mean, they were giggling and like that, wanting to be, the person that got picked. And so the lady, she's out there jumping with her high-heeled boots on. And, but it was fun because it demonstrated, just naturally. So she starts, and I said, spell the long way, and so, which is their capital city. And so she starts spelling, but when she starts jumping and spelling, all the rest of the teachers started spelling it with her at the same time. And so then when we were done, I said, this is what I mean, that not only is the one that's jumping being engaged now in the activity, but automatically all of your learners will start spelling along with. And so talked about how they could use that as a different way to have their kids engage in some fun and learn at the same time. And then we had the soccer ball, or the football, which is a soccer ball. And I would throw it to somebody. I'd ask a question and then throw it to somebody, and whoever caught the ball would be the one that would answer. And so just doing some things like that, teaching them with the minimal things that they have, ways to engage all of their learners in their learning styles.
It was amazing. You can imagine. She's amazing. And so I wanted to to finish by telling 3 little stories. And I've been reading lately in Acts, and I've just really have been having fun. And I've been reading about, Peter having his dream and the sheets coming down, and there's all this food, and he's like, I can't eat that, and God is saying yes, and then the dream ends, and the three people come to the door, and off he goes, because he knows, okay, God is speaking to me, I need to go, and he's going to take the word to the Gentiles. But it was like in Acts, there's so many times where God he just speaks supernaturally to someone, and amazing turn of events happened. And I feel when we go to Africa that's what happens, that we step into this realm where that still small voice is there, but it's louder. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like you step into a realm where you just hear God speaking to you. And it's exciting because to me, it's like being in Acts. I love reading Acts. It's so fun. So one of the stories Chris mentioned was we're praying in this village for all these people. And, everybody came by and shook your hand, and it's like, this one is hot, this one is cold, this one's really clammy, this one is... you hardly shook hands with anybody where it felt normal. It was like everybody's sick to some degree. But this one mama and her baby just stood out, and it's like, this child has malaria, and this child is going to die. It's going to die. And I just felt God say that you can do this, something about this. This is easy. This is easy. Just do it. And so we just took her aside, and we said, can you get to a clinic? And she said, yes. I would have to take probably a bike taxi to the road, and then a taxi and everything. And it was less than $10 to get her to a clinic where she could get the medicine that she needed and save that child's life. And you just hear God say, do it. This is something you can do. Do this. And so to me, that was tremendously exciting. I love it when God does that. And the other thing, the first Saturday that we were out in a village, they were showing us their gardens. And oh my goodness, they really did have some amazing gardens. And it was fun, but you walk by these literal cesspools of filthy, dirty water, and they're using it to water their gardens. But they said, well, our well is broken, and so the people are drinking this too. And it's like, well, are they boiling it? Like, no, they just drink it. And so okay, there is a lot of sickness here because that water is putrid. It's just, you'd have to see it to believe it. It's just awful. And so we're talking to the pastor in that area, but also the village chiefs. And the chief is telling us, we have a program where we're saving money, we're putting money aside to repair our well. It's broken, and we can do this, but it's going to take us probably 6 months to 8 months to earn, for them to set aside enough money. And it was like, well, what's wrong with the well? And so he told us it's missing this one little rubber ring or something, And we calculated it out, and it was like $75. And that was to have the guy come out, repair it, pay him, clean water. And so as a team, we just said, guys, this isn't our normal, this isn't what we normally do. Our ministry isn't repairing wells, but we just felt like God said this is, I'm putting this in front of you, you can do this. And these are people who are trying. They're really trying, and you can do this for them. So we just pulled $75 of their money out of our, kitty and gave it to them. And that was Saturday, and Monday they sent us pictures of the water flowing. And, you just know, okay, we who knows what we did, how we saved. I mean, who knows? God does. And it's just exciting to hear God's voice and hear him say, this is the one. We were in another village, and their well was broken, and we didn't feel like at all that we needed to repair it. And you know, I can't tell you why God says this one and not that one, but you know, you just walk and know that you're hearing from God and you're listening and he's guiding and directing. And then the final story I want to tell is Joel just kept, while we were there, he was like, we have to get a hold of this Deputy Director of Education, Ellen Simongo. We just have to get a hold of her. And it's like, okay, you know, I'll see what I can do. And I'm trying to go through my emails. I can't find her contacts. I can't find her details. I can't. And it's like, Joel, I'm striking out. I just cannot find it. I don't know how to get a hold of her. And so he's like, well, I can't let this go. We have to do it. I know we have to do this. And so he's you know, we're training, we're doing all of our stuff, and he's making phone calls. And anyway, he sets up an appointment for the whole team Friday morning at 9 o'clock. And so we go to this government building, and we go in, and we go into her office and meet with her, and oh my gosh, she was amazing. She was just totally amazing. Godly Christian woman, thanked us so much for what we're doing. And at one point she said, so we told her, you know, this is the training we're doing, this is the district we're working in, this is what we're, you know, and thank you for doing a letter for us and allowing us to get all the PALs in tax-free. And, you know, so we've been working with them and communicating with them. And she said she wished she could have been to some of our training, and so we're telling her the kind of training we're doing. And then she stops and she says, well, what's your hope? And I said, well, really, our dream, what we really would like to do is we know that you do zonal trainings where you bring every teacher together and they come for a couple of days and you do training. And we would like to slot in with you and do what we're doing for all of the teachers in the zone, not just a select small group. And she said, oh, I think that's totally possible. And she said, I don't see why you can't do that. That just makes perfect sense, and let's just work on it, and we'll just, you know, probably extend it to 3 days training, and we'll slot you in, and let's keep in communication, and we'll make it happen. And it was like, thank you, Lord. I mean, it was, I knew when Joel gets that I have to follow through on this, and this is important. When he gets in that groove, it's like I have to go, okay, God, you are speaking to him, and that has to happen. He has to get that to happen. And then you go there and you just see, it's just so amazing to me. And so very exciting to see what the future will bring in that direction. That's really our heart's desire, is to get into their zonal trainings. And then the other thing she said was, next year when you come, I am going to set it up for you to go and meet the Minister of Education for our nation. And so we were just like, thank you very much. We would really love to do that. And then you go out in the hall and you're just wanting to, yeah, you know. It was so exciting. And, you know, so I don't know what God has in store, but I know that he's in control. And he's in charge, and he's leading, and he's directing. And, you know, we've already met with Rotary since we've been back, and they want to work with us to get us a larger grant this year. And so, you know, really the sky's the limit. I mean, heaven is the limit. And I just believe it's God's heart. He wants to bring heaven to earth for Malawi. And we're going to see bigger and greater things happen. And, you know, if you want to be a part of it, come talk to us. So, thank you.
Yeah. That's so great. So yeah, go talk to them, ask them questions. I know they have lots more stories to share. Super, super exciting. And again, small groups or Acts 2:42 groups, if you're interested in any of those, go talk to the people you saw or Vince and Talena. And if you have anything that you would like prayer for or somebody to stand with you in agreement on, we'll have ministry teams to come up front to pray with you, to prophesy over you, to encourage you. Other than that, have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Sunday.